Hello, first graders. Welcome to another week of online reading class. We are going to be talking today about something called point of view. And point of view is just a really fancy way of saying who is telling the story. So this week we're going to be working on figuring out who is doing the talking at different points of stories. So stories are told from different points of view. So what that means is sometimes a character tells a story. Sometimes it might sound like this. I was walking to the store, and then I saw my friend, and I was waving to my friend. So it's a character telling the story about themselves, from their own point of view, a character telling the story. Other times, a narrator tells the story. And a narrator is somebody who tells a story, but they're not in the story themselves. So a narrator would sound like this. She was walking to the store. She saw her friend and started waving. So it's somebody who's telling the story, but they're not in it. So for example, you might say, Miss Lasky was teaching her online reading class. She was telling us about point of view. If I was telling that same story, I would say, I was teaching online reading class. I was teaching point of view. So let's look at this book. You all know it, Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes. And it's our job to figure out who is talking at different points of the story. Is it a narrator? Somebody who's telling the story but they're not in it? Or is Pete the Cat telling the story? So at different points of stories, we're going to think, who's doing the talking? Who's doing the talking? Pete the Cat, I love my white shoes. Pete the Cat was walking down the street in his brand new white shoes. Pete loved his white shoes so much. He sang this song. Okay, let's stop right there. Is Pete the Cat talking about himself, or is a narrator talking about Pete? Let's read it one more time. Pete the Cat was walking down the street in his brand new white shoes. Pete loved his white shoes so much. He sang this song. If you said narrator, you are right. The narrator is talking about Pete. But let's turn to the next page. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. Is Pete talking here? Or is the narrator singing this song? If you said Pete, you are right. Pete is talking here. He's saying, I love my white shoes. So this point of view is Pete's. Pete is doing the talking. Oh no, Pete stepped in a large pile of strawberries. What color did it turn his shoes? Okay, Pete stepped in a large pile of strawberries. Pete. So is Pete talking about himself, or is a narrator talking about Pete? The narrator is doing the talking on this page. The narrator says, oh no, Pete stepped in a large pile of strawberries. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along, singing his song. The narrator's still talking here, talking about how it turned his shoes red. Did he cry? Goodness, no. The narrator's telling us, goodness, no. Now, who is doing the talking? I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. Oh, red shoes. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. So Pete is singing the song here. Pete is singing, I love my red shoes. Oh no! Pete stepped in a large pile of blueberries. What color did it turn his shoes? Blue! is doing the talking here? The narrator or Pete? The narrator is talking. He's talking about Pete. Good. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Now Pete is doing the talking again. Pete says, I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. Oh no! This is the narrator. Pete stepped in a large pile of mud. What color did it turn his shoes? Brown! Did Pete cry? Goodness no. He kept walking along and singing his song. So this is the narrator talking. Remember, a narrator is somebody telling the story, but they're not in the story. A narrator tells a story. And Pete now sings, I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. Wonder who's going to be talking next. Oh no, Pete stepped in a bucket of water. All the brown, all the blue, all the red were washed away. What color were his shoes again? Is this Pete talking or the narrator? It's the narrator. The narrator tells the story, but they're not in the story. White! But now they were wet. Did Pete cry? Goodness no, he kept walking along and singing his song. I love my wet shoes. I love my wet shoes. I love my wet shoes. Who's talking on this page? Pete is doing the talking. Good. And we know that because it says I. The moral of Pete's story is, we learned about moral last week. No matter what you step in, keep walking along and singing your song because it's all good. All right, first graders, I want you to go on Seesaw and tell me, what is a narrator? Watch this video again if you need a reminder. I taught you what a narrator is. Bye, first graders. Have so much fun.